Did an edge retention comparison recently on 3 knives. Now, these knives are not identical in the thickness of the blade stock, the nature of the blade grind, the angle of the edge grind, or the thickness of the edge bevel. All of these factors significantly influence the edge retention. So when I looked at the edge retention, it's not just going to be due to the steel alone, but also due to these other factors. Now the first question you might ask is, well, why would you do that since you're not looking at the steel? Well, a lot of times the question you're interested in is how one knife will compare to another knife. And there are more things to change in knives than just steels. So from a practical perspective, someone might actually ask, well, if you took an as-boxed ESEE and an as-boxed K-bar and you did some slicing on cardboard, what would the edge retention difference actually look like? So the important thing to notice when I put up the chart showing the edge retention, the performance of these 3 knives, it's not just due to the steel, it's also due to the geometrical differences between the 3 knives. Now, what would you expect? Well, both the ESEE and the K-bar temper the 1095 and 1095 CV towards the right of the tempering range, which means high tempering temperature, which means a significant increase in grindability, machinability, and very large toughness and durability, and a slight sacrifice in hardness. So you would expect Cold Steel Vagabond to possibly be 1 or 2 Rockwell points harder. It also contains a small amount of chromium carbides, and those are more wear resistant than the iron carbide or cementite found in these 2 steels. Now, type of work that we're doing, slicing up cardboard, where cardboard's rather soft, kind of abrasive. So edge retention will be strongly influenced by wear resistance and slightly less than that in deformation. So in terms of hardness and abrasion resistance, Vagabond should be slightly ahead. If you look at geometry, it pushes ahead even further. The Vagabond has a high hollow grind, and it's a rather deep grind, so it thins out behind the edge bevel significantly. The edge thickness and the edge angle are relatively low for a production knife. Full details are down in the description. The ESEE has a nice high flat blade grind and a moderate thickness and edge angle, but heavier than the Vagabond. The K-bar has a very short, stout blade bevel and very heavy edge bevel. So these factors also favor the Vagabond. So when you look at the comparison of these 3 knives, this knife you'd expect to have a boost because of the properties of the steel, combined with a boost because of the way the geometry itself would increase cutting ability and edge retention. Now, the reason why the geometry includes not only cutting ability but also edge retention is when you think about it, when you take a knife and you slice through cardboard, you're not going to do a 100% straight push, nice smooth pull. You might think you are, but you're not a machine. If you were to look at that under very close magnification, you'd actually see the knife wobbling back and forth like that. Because there's slight inconsistencies in your hand, there's slight inconsistencies in the cardboard, everything is sort of moving together. And you have to remember the actual apex of the knife, the part that does the cutting, is only about on the order of a micron. So it doesn't take much back and forth movement to create differences similar to the scale of the apex. So imagine now cutting like this twisting back and forth, then you can easily see that the harder you would press while you were doing this, the more it would affect the apex. Well, that is what's going on. You just can't see it. Lower edge angle, relatively thin edge bevel, relatively high, relatively deep blade grind means less force in the cut, which means less twisting, less lateral load. It gets a double dose of benefit and edge retention. Now, here's the challenge. Cold steel AK-47. AUS-8, definitely 1 to 2 points harder than even the Vagabond. AUS-8 has more chromium carbides than AUS-6. So again, when you're slicing a fairly soft, kind of abrasive material, you'd expect the steel itself to give this a difference in edge retention. What about the geometrical factors? Well, this has an even higher and an even deeper blade bevel than the Vagabond. This is not the as-boxed edge configuration. It was reground to around 10 degrees per side. So just like all aspects favored the Vagabond over these two knives, all aspects favor the AK-47 over the Vagabond in edge retention for this specific type of cutting. You can't expand it out to all cutting on all materials. Now, where's the data point for this knife going to fall on the same chart? That's the challenge for this week. And if you want to get a bit fancy, pick your data point and pick your range.